This is Wendy with Art Software, continuing our deep dive series into Universe Image Creator. Open up your Universe Image Creator. Today we're going to look at the Lens Flare tool. So once you open it up, you'll see that you have a black background. That means you have nothing in your universe. There's no objects listed. And the first thing we're going to do is pull down our tool menu here, or tool select drop down, and you'll see all the tools available to you. We're going to look at the Lens Flare tool today. If I click anywhere in here, a default lens flare will appear. To see the properties that go with this, I will click the pencil object or button, and that toggles, so it turns it on and off. And you'll see that when it is rendered on the page, it gives it an ID that's unique, so that way you can refer to it later in this object drop-down list. When you have more and more objects, they'll all appear here. Sometimes numbers can be hard to remember, so to change that to something you can remember, you just highlight it over here on your left and then type whatever you want. I think I'm going to make it a yellow and purple one. I tried this earlier and I like the contrast. You can either tab away from it and that will save it and you'll see it reflected here, or when you're up here, I'll put a number 2. If you click anywhere in this gray area, it will also save it and reflect it up here. So I'll take away the 2, hit tab. And now I'm looking at my object. So if I click on these 2 buttons, they act as like toggle switches. So if you click on it, it is depressed and you're in orientation mode. If you click it again, it turns it off. So when you're in orientation mode, you can change or rotate the object. To show it off better, I'm going to take this distance property and I'm going to move it to the far right, and that'll help pull it away a little bit. And I think I'm going to take the size, move it to the left, making it smaller, so that way you can see all of it. The selected object has a red box around it, and that you can see it's also selected from up here. If I don't want to see the red line, I just come over here to view and turn that off. But I would like to have it on so you can see everything that I'm doing. With the orientation button selected, it's pressed down. I come over here, I click, and if I drag my mouse left to right, it flips it horizontally. If I drag it up and down, it flips it vertically. See? So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to make it kind of straight on, and I'm going to turn that off and go on to the location tool. If I click on the location tool and I click my pointer anywhere, that's where it's going to move to. It's going to put the center of the object at my pointer. So if I come over here, there's the center of the object. I can also click and drag, and bring it and release it, and the center will be here. I'm going to leave it here because I kind of like it. One thing that's important about orientation and location is be sure you turn it off if you're using it. If not, when you're moving around, you're actually still in that mode. So I've turned it off, and now I'm going to finish talking about these other items. All of the sliders work the same. If you go to the far right, you get a bigger value. If you go to the far left, you get a smaller value. If you want to know what each one is, you just hover over the heading for it, and it will show you or tell you what it is. Like for distance, larger values move the object further away. So if you go this way, you're moving it further away. So let's continue. So we did the distance and the size, and now shape changes it from a square, which is at 100% to the right. You can see that it's a square object. As I move it to the left, it becomes more oblong, like a rectangle. And I can continue it until it's really narrow. So there's shape. I'm going to keep it as a square. So the billboard is an interesting thing. There are 3 tools that are kind of 2-dimensional: the nebula, interstellar gas, and this lens flare. So that means when you're moving around in this space, remember, Universe is built on a game engine, and you can actually kind of move around back and forth, and you can even move forward too. If you move your little up and down arrow, you're moving into it, into your little space and away from it. But with these 3 items, you can kind of see behind it, or you can get on an angle and it looks like it's sideways. So if you use the billboard and you click it, it's like a billboard on the road, I guess. When you're going from side to side, you can never get behind it. You'll always see the face of it. And this helps give it a 3D look. So that's what Billboard is. I'm going to check it off for now. The next section has to do with its color representation. So I'm going to click on the flare color. I'm going to change it to yellow. Nice bright. And when you've got a color, just click anywhere in this gray area and it will accept it. And on this second color, I'm going to pick purple. Also, if you wanted to, you could click the dropper and pick a different color using the dropper. Just to let you know. That's more purple. Okay. So I'll click on that. So those are the two colors. I can see the yellow here. The purple isn't quite what I want. Maybe let me go more red. I want it to stand out. Okay, that's better. So when I have the blend means how this object is going to blend to other objects that are behind it. Like if you're looking up at space, you're actually, looking at stars on top of stars, or if you see the Milky Way galaxy or something, you can see them all coming through. So if you do an add for the blend, it's going to place this on top of objects behind it. So when you're really making images with Universe Image Creator, you'll have a star field and you might have a galaxy or something in the background, something like that. So this will be placed on top of it and you can see it better. If you change it to be combine, it will combine it with the background somewhat, so the background will come through. Right now we only have a black background, so it's just kind of looks like it's making it less bright. But if you had other things behind it, you would see those come through. And then the subtract one just subtracts this object from the background, so it'll just be black like the background. The other three are just kind of an emphasized version of the first three. So you can play around with those if you want. So now that we're going on, we have the blend factor. That's once again, whoops, I'm going to go back to add. There we go, so we can see our lens flare. This blend factor is, I believe it's pulling it back from an add to a combine all the way to the subtract. So you can actually have a finer detail of these three settings. So it kind of is nice. The follow-up shape was kind of interesting. If you click it to the far left, it makes it a line, which is pretty cool. And then if you go to the far right, you have a circle. If you do anything in the middle, it's kind of part way in between those two shapes. So it kind of gives you some flexibility depending on what you want to achieve. So I'm going to go back to the circle. And now if we look at the streaks, like a lens flare, they have streaks. You can't really see it well because it's kind of small. So I'm going to increase my size. There we go. I think I'm going to move it a little bit more. Whoa, how about right here? Very nice. All right, so we have our streaks, and you can see there's a whole lot of them. If I want to make them fewer, I just come down a bit. And a little bit more. There we go. That's not bad. The flare intensity, like all of them, just bring it to the far side so you can get a feel for what it does. So this is the max. That's very intense. And if you go to the other side, it basically goes to nothing. See, there it is, all gone. So we'll kind of go in the middle somewhere. Streak intensity works the same. If you click on streak intensity, you can see how bright the streaks are. It's kind of neat. I'm going to actually change my size of my window. Bring the center. There we go. And moving right along. The next one is the secondary streaks. These secondary ones will appear in between the major streaks. So it's what you would imagine. You go to the far right, you get the most you can have. And if you want to get rid of them, you just go to the far left and you won't have any. So I'll go in the middle so you can kind of see a little bit. The halo effect is exactly what you think. That represents the circle. So if we want a nice bright one, we go over to the far right. If we want it to be less, we just keep moving it to the left. And if we want to get rid of it, we go to the far left. And that's very pretty too. often lens flares are nice to put in various places in your image, and you can see brighter stars that way. You can place them as if they're far away. It's very pretty. This noise section is interesting. It provides noise around the existing shapes. So if I go to the far right, you'll have more noise. If you go to the far left, you'll have less, and it will be more clean. The same with the granularity. I'll put a little bit of noise so you can kind of get a feel for what this next one does. Granularity makes it more granular or blocky, I thought. And then when I went to the other side, it kind of diffused it to where it was softer. See. Play around. You'll like it. Amplitude amplifies the noise. Okay, so you see I went to the far right and I have the highest amplification of the noise. And if I go to the far left, it's the opposite. You can't hardly see any noise. And the noise is just all of the unusual shape going on in there. The gain is supposed to emphasize all of your settings. So you put it to the far right, you have a higher gain of those previous settings. If you go to the far left, none. Okay. And you can see that it has the definition right here. There's two blue buttons below these. The first button will give you a different sampling. So let's say it's not as noticeable for the lens flare, but if you use interstellar gas, it can really make a different look. So you kind of keep clicking on your sampling until you like the look that's displayed. That's nice. And then the bottom button will restore all of your settings back to the defaults. So if you get really crazy and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get back to normal, that's what you do. So that's everything. I hope you enjoyed the show, or the going through all of the different elements and properties. Take care, and let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. Thank you.